Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. Welcome to One to One. For several decades, New York City-based sketch artist Christine Cornell has been capturing the likenesses of the highest profile figures entangled in the American judicial system. Among them, Martha Stewart, Bill Cosby, John Gotti, architects of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, Woody Allen, and now Donald Trump. Her work has appeared on television shows and in newspapers worldwide. Because cameras are not allowed in New York City courtrooms, her sketches have provided us with some of the only visual glimpses inside these headline-grabbing cases and of the characters themselves. They have even turned Cornell into a bit of a celebrity herself, as she's often called on to explain what goes into covering such high-profile cases and what she hopes to capture in her sketches. Christine, welcome.
Hello, ma'am.
You know, I saw you for years around town when I was as a reporter and a columnist. And now I'm seeing you interviewed on TV shows,
Crazy, right?
other than this one.
It's been a fluke.
I don't recall this kind of media interest in the courtroom artist to this level before. Why
Ever.
is it happening now?
Because the news is hungry, ravenous for anything Trump. And so, you know, in the absence of being able to fill up every inch of the airwaves,
They're interviewing the artist.
they're interviewing the artists. You know, I've heard some photographers say, "Hey, what about us?" You know.
Well, maybe they're next. What has been your experience? How would you summarize your experience of covering this case?
A little bit of, I don't know, water torture. The hours are hideously long. In the beginning, they didn't seem to have an appreciation of what the artists actually do, you know, so they wouldn't let us leave to have our drawings shot.
What's a drawing shot? What do you mean?
The drawing, put it on, you know, take a picture of it,
Right.
send it off to the news organization. They wouldn't let us out of the courtroom. They scolded us like children to stay in our seats, and as if we were cutting up, just trying to like do our jobs. It was making us nuts, and we had to work around it. You know, we had to finally get them to understand that yes, the artists are allowed to go scoot out and come back in with a little, you know, they're trying to keep some very, you know, clamped down decorum in the courtroom. And you know, most of the reporters can deal with that because they've got their laptops there and they can still do their jobs. But, you know, we're a low-tech industry, and we have to scurry out with our stuff and do it in the hall.
So what's your day like? You have to be there at 7. Tell me, run through your day for me.
Well, you know, people start lining up at god-awful hours, but we actually have a spot, 3 artists, and we rotate through. So that we don't kill each other. There are no good seats, so we just, you know, go.
Do you have a special seat in the front row or?
Third row back.
Okay.
Third row back. So that means that there's an awful lot of people sitting in front of us, and the visuals are really dreadful. Wham, right? There's nothing to be done about it. The marshals seem to think that this presence of, you know, officers back to back, like in combat formation, in the middle of the room, is necessary to, and you know, it certainly has a dampening effect on all of our, you know, our senses of ourselves and our ability to move. We stay put like good children. But it makes it hard to see Mr. Trump, and that's the whole point of my job, is to see Mr. Trump. So I've been having to really pay attention when he comes into the room or goes out of the room, memorize his face, and draw him from memory, because he literally cannot be seen sitting in his chair.
So you spend the morning sketching, you get a lunch break. Do you have work that you have to do on the lunch break?
I have to have a drawing done before noon. That's before the lunch break. Then I generally have another drawing ready at the lunch break, which is more like 1 o'clock. You know, that's really a very short window, that 1 hour. So you shoot your drawing, you send it off, you shove food in your face, and then you go back and stand on line.
Who takes the drawings at your lunch break? Who do you hand them off to?
I don't hand them off to anyone. I shoot them myself,
Okay,
and I email them myself.
I see. I see. As a courtroom artist, what are you trying to accomplish in your drawings?
I'm trying to do a good representation of likeness, as well as if there is any kind of emotional dynamic among the characters. It's been interesting to see Michael Cohen this time around, because he was way more combative in the real estate trial. Here he is really, boy, has he got it tamped down. And, you know, the bitterness between him and Trump is legendary at this, you know, there was no greater love than, you know, these two guys. They were, you know, Trump actually downloaded all of his contacts into Michael Cohen's phone to facilitate Michael just acting in his behalf.
And now they're enemies.
Absolute enemies. And, you know, Trump sits with his eyes shut. And there's something strange about that. He really has spent a lot of this trial looking as if he's in a Zen meditation mode, except that his forehead's all screwed up and he doesn't look happy. But his eyes are shut, and I don't think he's sleeping. Although I've seen him yawn, and I've seen his head droop a little. I've seen him fight sleep a little. He's tuning out as much as he possibly can. He only tunes in when it's his case.
Okay.
Not surprising, right?
You use very bold, deep colors. I was trying to think, you know, it's been years since I looked at a comic book, but in my mind, it's similar to the
Marvel Comics.
yes, yes.
Those were my very
yes.
first influences, I do believe.
Okay. Well, I feel that in your color, and it's
Well, the color has gotten a little more lively. First of all, it's an extremely drab room, but you have to find the color where you can find it. And the fluorescent lighting is green, and so you have that walnut wood with a green light in it, and that's why I feel totally, you got to cool it down.
yeah.
You know? And then there's a lot of monitors in the room. So you
Right.
have that purple light flying around. And so that's why I end up putting purples into my wood as well. Now,
Okay.
am I a tad more chromatic than actuality? Yes, ma'am.
Now, is this wood? This is Arius's paper that you're working on.
Yeah.
Which it's
Which is very close to the color of the wood
okay.
in the actual courtroom.
I see. I see. And the tools that you use, they're called pastels, but they're not necessarily pastel colors, right?
It's a ground powder, and it's held together with an oil binder. And it's
Okay.
the degree of how much oil is in that binder that makes it either a soft pastel or an oil pastel. Or, you know, I use these very soft chalks. They're handmade. They have richer color, which is why I like them. And they crumble, which makes it an extremely messy.
I don't know if it's the cross-examination or the direct of Stormy Daniels.
It's the direct.
Okay, okay. And what were you trying to capture in this particular drawing?
You know, Trump looking miserable and Stormy looking a little bit animated. They flashed extremely briefly the photograph of them together on the golf course, you know, where he's smiling. And, you know, she's posing with him. It was really pretty dramatic. Dramatic testimony.
Okay.
A little bit confusing because, you know, you had to wonder how much of this was fun and how much of this really was, you know, just transactional. She was hoping to get, you know, to be on The Apprentice and stuff. I think it was more of that ilk.
Transactional.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
see. And you have another one to show us.
And that's a Michael Cohen picture, and you know, it was on his direct testimony.
You know, his lips get more and more turned down as this trial goes on.
Who? Oh, Michael Cohen?
Michael Cohen.
Oh, yeah. it's hard to exaggerate that little frowny face.
And what was the mood in the courtroom on that particular day?
You know, I wish that I could just bring myself into a view where I could actually, you know, see the Trump man instead of having to reach for it. There is a monitor, and you can actually check and see if he's making eye contact or if his eyes are shut. His eyes were predominantly shut during
Yeah.
Michael Cohen's testimony.
Okay.
He was shutting the dang man out.
Could you feel the kind of tension between them?
Trump was shutting down. There was not really too much.
Yeah.
You know, Michael kind of is a very, he's a small man.
Yeah.
Very different, you know, Trump's big.
Right.
And
right.
Michael Cohen, I think he's probably back into his high school physique. I think he's lost some weight.
Okay.
He's just so thin. And he comes in a little bit looking furtively around him, you know. And you get this funny vibe off of Michael, who I was able to pay attention to. He gave the jurors some of these little, like, you know, sheepish, half smiles. He had to admit so many, you know, really
Bad things that he done. Yeah.
corrupt things that
Right,
he'd done.
right,
You know,
right.
his ability to thieve
Okay.
was really kind of.
Has Trump been making eye contact with the jury, or trying to?
It seems to me that the jury has been trying not to make eye contact with him. I watch them when they come in, and I don't see them engaging with him. I saw one guy look at Trump as he walked by, and he's in the back row, and I said, "Is that an alternate?" They said, "Nope, he's a regular juror, and he's a lawyer." So he might have a little bit more insight into exactly the, you know, the mechanics of, you know, what is this loopy-loop that's threatening to, you know,
Completely derail him, right?
ensnare Trump.
Right.
I mean, the biggest thing that we're looking at here is like, will a conviction actually affect the election?
Right.
Which is so unbelievable that that's where our heads are, as opposed to just the simple things here.
Right. As I said earlier, you know, you're there because they don't allow cameras in New York courtrooms.
Right.
Do you think that drawings can capture something that video does not, or that photographs cannot?
I think a really good photograph, nobody can top that, right? But what they get right now, there is no camera in there. I don't know that that would be giving them anything more than the artist is able to do, because one thing we can do is set up a dynamic, relational dynamic between the two of them, even if it's not, you know, viable in that setting.
Yeah.
You know, even if Trump's way over here and Cohen's way over here, you can move it together and at least get them in the same picture frame.
Who have been some of the most difficult characters, I'm going to use the term characters, are players in all of this, to draw?
In this particular trial?
In this one or any other?
You know, I always say if I can see somebody, I can draw
You
them.
can draw them.
This has just been a hard trial for that reason, and that's because of the marshals being lined up.
And being unable to see people clearly.
Absolutely. I mean, I've stayed for the judge's charge conference yesterday because my hope was that I might be able to get a little bit more of the attorneys who I haven't been able to see, period. So the defense table is completely invisible to me, and I'm staring with my binoculars at the navel of this marshal, hoping that the two of them, like some point, they'll shift their foot and I will see a little sliver in there, and hopefully it'll be the front of his face instead of the back of his head.
I would think, though, one would think that Trump would be fun to draw.
Trump?
Just
He's
because
fun.
he has, yeah.
He's very chiseled, you know? He's got those interesting hair parts. You know, I mean, his eyebrows jut out, and they're dramatic. And I don't know what's going on right now with the rest of his hair. It was way more gold in the beginning of the trial. It had that, you know, Carvel coif to it. And now it's looking kind of like he's trimmed it, like he's letting it go a little more neutral.
And you drew him much earlier in his career,
I did.
right?
I drew him back in the early 80s.
Okay.
It was the USFL versus NFL antitrust suit. And
When he was very handsome.
yes,
young
he
man.
was. And he was very cocky. And his, you know, body language on the witness stand, you know, kind of showed it that he was, you know, man spread and all that. It was, you know, he was, here I am.
Do you ever, I know you're trying to capture so many things, details visually. Do you get a chance to really listen to the testimony at all?
Of course. Yeah, I'm kind of like a little recorder. I take it all down, you know, but I don't miss a beat. But what I don't do is what the reporters do, which is put things in context and, you know, like right there on the spot. That's their job, is to, you know, weigh the significance and put everything in perspective. I hear it, but I'm using that processing part of my brain on the picture.
Are you able to, or have you been able to form opinions about the players in this case, character or personality?
I'm fascinated looking at this jury. I know they are all taking this incredibly seriously. Nobody looks like they're really having a very good time. I think the importance of this is weighing on them very hard. I think that the law is very confusing in this case because we all know it's okay to pay off a porn star. It's okay to cheat on your wife. It's a cover-up of the cover-up and why that happened, you know, what that was in the service of. And one can speculate, but he's not charged with, you know, campaign finance fraud, which is, I think, going to make it hard for this jury to figure out what are we doing here.
Mm-hmm. There are basically just three of you, three courtroom artists who are covering this trial here, and you're all women. There used to be more men.
Yeah, the men dropped off.
What
The men were really lovely. They were so gracious. They would be gentlemanly. Oh, you take that seat. I mean, unbelievable. We fight over it all like, you know, the women are not as nice.
Ah, okay. You've been doing this, I think you said, close to 50 years.
Yeah.
Have you changed? I'm sure you have learned tricks of the trade and how to do things better or quicker. What changes have you made in terms of approaching your work?
Okay, in the beginning, I was very much very linear on my work, not very colorful. And then I was making, you know, like tinted photographs, colored drawings. But then I got back into painting school and, you know, was doing 5 nights a week, and my drawings got richer and became more lifelike. I think I was much more careful. And, you know, in the 80s, in the 90s, my drawings have loosened up a lot. And I'm not quite sure if that's just because I'm having a little more fun. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm getting a little more Daumier expressive when I have an opportunity. When it goes well, it makes me really happy. But I don't dwell on things like making the inside column of the legal pad, you know, perfectly rendered.
Right.
You know, I don't do all of the water, jugs.
You don't sweat the small things.
I don't sweat all the little stuff.
Okay. Your most memorable trials?
That's just a ridiculous question over 50 years.
Okay.
You know, who do I love to draw? I mean, I'd love to draw almost everybody that I do draw. I love to draw them, and especially if I get to draw them a lot. You know, it was interesting drawing Sammy Gravano. He was on the stand for 8 days. He was looking very professorial, not like the thug that he was. And he was admitting to 19 murders. And so you're thinking about, like, golly, what a reprehensible human being. And what about the people who love him in his life? And, you know, how do they process this? And he just had a very, you know, massive ego. One day he said to me, "Handsome, aren't I?" You know, and I'm going, oi, right? Beauty is as beauty does. But he was very full of himself. And when he had cancer and he was back in court with no hair on his head, he stuck his tongue out at me.
Bill Cosby, what sense of him did you get?
Bill Cosby is an actor, and he's always performing. Obviously, he was also a million miles away from me. I did catch him catching my eye once, which a little bit put the lie to his "I'm blind" type of a thing. He was using that as trying to hope to influence the jury, I think. But he was very a dramatic clown in the courtroom. There was a day he came in with a cane, Blind Man Act, and he's waving it in front of him. And it was his entourage behind him and him coming in with swinging his cane like this. It was like something out of a Bruegel painting.
It was interesting that he seemed to be able-bodied before the trial, and suddenly he was blind and, you know, needed to be helped in. And I think after the trial, he was okay. What kind of response do you get to your drawings from whomever, either the actors in the trial or outside, or from?
I think, you know, we're very entertaining. They love having the artists there. They love watching us work. It's very exciting to see that kind of magic happen, you know, where they have a blank piece of paper and the next thing you know, you have a 3D image evolving and all this movement and characters on it. So we're pretty much loved in the courtroom. Mostly people are very happy with what I do. And how I represent them. I've gotten some very nice compliments in my time. You know, Imelda Marco said, "Other artists draw likeness, you draw soul." Well, I was so attentive to those tears rolling down her cheeks and her rosary and her, you know, devastated human being thing that she was trying to put across. So of course she liked me.
Are your images sort of composites of physical qualities plus feelings and emotions?
Well, they're composites in terms that they are time-elapse. You know, you can only focus on one thing at a time. And there's a lot of things going on in the courtroom that you might not be tuned into. I think that if something, you know, dramatic happens, you sure as heck are, you know, whipping out a new page and making sure you get it, you know. So sometimes, you know, you just have to devote a drawing to the fact that the witness all of a sudden began to weep and needed a moment to collect themselves right away. That's a new drawing, has to be done. And it's not like you can change the old drawing. You've got to, it's
How much does it
fresh.
take? How much time does it take to do a drawing?
Depends on how much you're putting into it.
Yeah.
You know, if it's got 5 people in it, you know, give yourself an hour. If it's you know, if you have 20 minutes per portrait, that's pretty good time. Sometimes you have quite a bit less than that.
And I notice sometimes you have to compress what's going on, you know, into a piece of, into a sketch. A lot more people that.
Well, I leave out the unimportant people, and I just take the important people and move them a little closer
Move
together.
them closer.
And I make them a little larger sometimes so that I can do a better portrait because, you know, chalks are clumsy tools. And so when you're doing a head that's smaller than 1.5 inches, you're gonna, you know, get into not be able to articulate it quite as nicely as you can if you have a little more working space.
What qualities does it take to be a good courtroom artist?
You got to be super fast. You have to have a complete openness to the dynamic, so that, you know, you come in with zero preconceptions, and you just let it, you channel the energy, and just try and be a good, conductor in that sense. So whatever is playing with the witness, for instance, whatever emotional stuff they're going through, you try and just feel it. You want them to breathe on your page. So what else does an artist need, a court artist need? A lot of practice, a lot of training. I practiced very academically. I studied anatomy, and I did painting, and I still paint.
Okay.
But just completely investing yourself in your art, I think that's what's going to make for the richest drawings. It's not necessarily what's required by the job, but that's a different question.
And there is specific training that artists have to go through in order to qualify to cover trials in New York?
Not particularly, no.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Nope, it's just quality of the artists themselves and what their abilities are. And of course, I am way faster than I used to be, and I can do an awful lot more.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's going to be, in the next few weeks, there's going to be a lot more drama that you are going to be able to capture for us to see.
What a shame that Mr. Trump wouldn't testify.
How do you feel about that?
I think he wouldn't have lasted 2 minutes on the stand because he tends to not be able to follow instructions, answer a question, respond to anything outside of the dialogue that's going on in his head. So it wouldn't have worked.
Okay.
I get it. But I mean,
Are you disappointed?
It was a big disappointment for me, sure, of course, because
Okay.
wouldn't it be great if you would actually be a person bearing witness,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate your coming and giving us a behind-the-scenes look at some of the most historic moments in U.S. court history, including those that are going on right now.
Oh, dear.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I'd like to thank Christine Cornell, a longtime courtroom artist whose work has recently captured both the drama and the tedium of the Donald Trump hush money trial. To learn about our upcoming shows, you can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at 1-to-1 CUNY TV. For the City University of New York and 1-to-1, I'm Cheryl McCarthy.